Our special guest tonight began her musical career in the early 90s and is best known as the frontwoman of the iconic Aussie band Magic Dirt. She's currently finishing her debut solo album and has recently been on the road with the Rock Whiz National Tour. I'm rapt to welcome Adalita Srsen to the show. Adalita, thank you so much for being here.
No worries, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's a bit of a grunge-themed episode tonight. I was wondering if you could tell us about your experiences in the music industry throughout the 90s and particularly with Magic Dirt.
Well, you know, it was a great time. It was the heady days, you know, the old 90s. I grew up in Geelong and when Nirvana hit and, you know, we were listening to Mudhoney and, you know, stuff like that before the whole Nirvana wave hit. But, you know, it was like 89, 90 when I first started getting into the Pixies and Mudhoney and going to the local club, which was called the Barn Club. It was like a real dirty old bikers punk rock sort of pub. And, you know, there was so many people starting bands and playing in bands, and myself and Dean, who was the bass player in Magic Dirt, we would go to the Barn Club and watch all these local bands and just be right up the front with our green cardies on and me with my glasses going, yeah, and we'd be the only two up the front just like headbanging and just loving it. Just local bands, you know, playing really grungy, like loud, you know, punk rock, like, you know, like awesome stuff, but out of tune, and just, you know, people would throw bottles, you know, if you liked a band, you'd throw bottles at them, and so it was all, you know, it was a barrel of fun, and it was really happening, and there was a lot of bands, and you just go there every weekend, you know, so we kind of grew out of that, yeah.
Yeah, so then you and Dean thought you'd start a band yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, Dean was really sort of a very important figure in my life. He came along and heard some songs I was writing and said, oh, they're great songs, so he just started to learn bass guitar so he could play with me, and we just started jamming and met another mate who was, you know, was really good on lead guitar, and we would just jam for hours, just, you know, having fun, and then, you know, listening to stuff like The Stooges and, you know, MC5 and, you know, stuff like that. And so, you know, and then we found a drummer and we just started playing for fun. It wasn't really, there was no real ambition to be famous or to, you know, even to make records. We were just writing songs and playing at the local pub and just having a ball. It was so much fun, and it was a real escape from sort of just life, you know.
Yeah, well, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this? What were you doing?
Well, I was working at McDonald's and then I worked at a little cafe, and then I was at uni studying an arts degree. And I was studying to be a teacher.
Oh, cool.
But I was like, I sort of found it boring. I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
so I dropped out of my teaching degree.
Maybe you could be a music teacher one day, you know, School of Rock.
Yeah. Well, Magic Dirt have done music workshops at schools, funnily enough. In the last 5 years, we've been to lots of schools doing that sort of thing, School of Rock, kind of, you know, vibing up the kids and, you know, playing in front of them and, you know, answering their questions. So, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it kind of did happen.
Awesome. Did you get a shock when you did start getting mainstream success? Because you became really mainstream. You know, it was fantastic.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were kind of one of the, I guess you could say, the buzz bands around the early 90s, you know, sort of flavour of the month, but it lasted for quite a while. It really happened so quick. You know, we were playing at the Tote in Melbourne one night, and Go, the independent record label, the head guy was there and with another guy, and they really liked us, and they said, oh, you know, we want to sign you. And we're like, what? I don't know. I think I was just not really aware of the magnitude of what was going on. We were just living in our bubble. We were from Geelong. We were just like these kids, like just playing hardcore and going for it and not really understanding. Well, I didn't. Dean was very good with that stuff. He kind of had a good vision of what was happening, but it happened quick. And then suddenly we were supporting Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and John Spencer and Pavement, and just, you know, it just all happened so quickly, and so we had no time to think about it. So we were out of Geelong and, you know, travelling around and just going mental.
Yeah, yeah, but you're still really generous to rural communities as well, though. You've always done the rural gigs and all ages gigs. When you play live, what sort of a setting do you prefer? Do you like the big festival shows or the pub gigs?
Oh, it's hard to choose. I mean, the pub gigs are great. They're probably my favourite because you've got a lot more control of the actual sound, the acoustics. When you're doing a festival show, you're sort of a slave to the elements. You know, the wind blows the sound around. So maybe, you know, acoustic-wise, but vibe-wise, it just depends on the gig. You know, the festival shows are amazing, like the big day outs, you know, playing the main stages, you're playing in front of 40,000 people and it's like, you know, you just get numb to it. You're just like going, ah! You know, it's hard to describe.
It's amazing.
It's a buzz playing to a crowd and it's happening. You know, it's the two-way sort of vibe is happening and you're feeding off each other. That's a great show. Wherever you do it, that's a great show.
Yeah, yeah. And you've just come off the Rock Whiz tour.
Yeah.
How's that been?
Awesome. So good, so luxurious. I was so spoiled. It was like there was catering and you get picked up and dropped off at your hotel and staying in plush hotels. But, you know, the gigs were great, playing to, you know, sold out entertainment centre style stadium shows, you know, big, massive shows. And, you know, everyone's so hospitable and professional and it was great. You know, it's very different to doing Magic Dirt or, you know, it's a whole new ball game and I'm doing, it's like theatre, you know, in a way. So it was very different for me, but very confidence building, you know.
Yeah.
It helps you just, you know, develop skills that you wouldn't have otherwise if you didn't do something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And before that, you toured in tribute to Dean. How are the audiences responding to that news and how are you coping as a band?
Not very well. Yeah, it's been, I mean, you know, we don't really know what's happening with the band. Our lives have been turned upside down, you know, it's a very difficult time. And I don't know what's going to happen, you know, so I guess we're on hiatus and we haven't really made any big announcements or anything like that. We just feel completely sort of shattered, you know.
Yeah.
Dean was the linchpin, he was a best friend, you know, and it's very hard without him, so we're all spinning out really. So but you know, we just got to take day by day. And you know, Magic Dirt's got a huge legacy and Dean was very protective of the band's legacy and you know, he worked really hard and we all worked really hard. So, but we do have things in the works behind the scenes. So if we're not touring, it doesn't mean that, you know, we haven't got other things planned. Yeah. So, you know, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do with the legacy and there's still things to come out.
Definitely.
So, you know, we're thinking of such things as a doco and, you know, box sets and, you know, releasing stuff. So there are things that are happening. So
yeah, no, you'd be really proud of that and you should be proud of it too. It's an amazing body of work.
Yeah.
And and we're all anticipating your solo album as well. Can you tell us quickly just what to expect?
Yeah, well, it's all very scary for me because I'm on my own, just on electric guitar. It's really stripped down. There's no band, so
that'd be great though.
Yeah, it is great. It is exciting, and Dean really pushed for me to do it. You know, so I kind of feel I have to honour that. But as well, you know, I really want to try it out just for something different. And it's going to be a very stripped back album, just me and guitar, with a few sprinklings of violin or percussion from a mate of mine who came in. So mid-year, hopefully it'll come out.
Awesome, can't wait for it. Thank you so much for being here, Adalita.
No worries,
really appreciate
Caitlin.
it.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. For the latest news on Adalita's music, go to www.myspace.com/Adalita Music or check out the Magic Dirt website at www.magicdirt.com.